All righty. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the March 2025 Klamath Film member meeting. We're doing something a little bit different this month. We have a guest speaker who is not really an industry professional like usual, but instead we'll have Jesse down here, who is one of our Klamath Film members and who has written a uh, short that we're going to go through and we're going to look at it and we're going to have a table read and we're going to give notes and then we're going to talk about possibly next steps for making this our first Klamath Film original. So we'll see how that goes. I've got a handful of announcements and some news before we get into that. And then we'll go into introductions and then we'll start talking to Jesse and get him to pitch this to us. I hope you've been working on your pitch skills. I imagine you have.
Yeah.
I imagine you have.
Underhand or overhand?
Uh-huh. Softball
Softball.
to the
Yeah.
the big
Uh-huh.
fantastic.
That's why my shoulders hurt.
There it is. That's the reason. All right. Well, so the first thing I've got is we've got two different like film work opportunities brought to us. One of them from Larry himself has brought this to my attention. Kimberly Owens is looking for a female actor between 21 and 50 years old to be paid for a position during the first week of April. It will be part of a training scenario at the Running Y Ranch. And if you're interested, I've got that email. We think that maybe she may have already filled that position, but there's no harm in reaching out to her anyway. Larry, do you have any extra information about that film job or that gig?
Yeah, well, it's like a training thing for the employees of Boise Cascade.
Right.
So there's like managers and supervisors that are be going through the training. And as one of the actors, we're coming in and with problems
Yeah.
for them to try and solve the problems.
Yeah, totally.
So we do like 8 sessions. I'm doing 8 sessions, but it's 2 different characters.
Cool.
So, and we stay there at the hotel on the Honey Ride.
Is this an annual thing?
This is my first time doing it.
Okay, good to know. I'm now just curious on where you were able to come across the opportunity because I was
The
like,
twins referred me.
okay,
You know the twins?
no,
We did our acting class.
yes, okay,
They're those
gotcha.
that sent an email.
Got it. What acting class? Out of
It
curiosity.
was at
We did
Yeah.
the acting class. Also, hello, I don't know if you remember Lee, but yeah.
yeah, she's one of the twins.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well-
You guys referred me to Kimberly.
Fantastic.
Either you or your sister. I'm not sure which one.
So when was this acting class and where? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, it was at the Russ Ragland. It was a master acting class and
Yeah.
lasted 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
One day a week.
And it was specifically centered on method approaches.
And
Yeah.
then again in next month, April.
Something.
That's all right.
The only other thing I'll mention is that I never got a chance to apologize. I totally spaced the 3rd session. If you also probably remember,
Read your part.
it was that I totally forgot. It basically fell off the face of the earth, and I felt so bad afterwards because I realized oh no. I mean, I felt bad for the rest of you guys, but I also felt bad for myself because oh well, no, I missed that session. Dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Really, once you get
it
done,
was fun. There's I think 8.
here we go. What we got?
Yeah.
It was canceled. Not enough applications.
Oh no.
I'm sorry to hear that. Well, next time you want to get something going like that, go ahead and send me an email and I'll start pushing it through Klamath Film. Fantastic. Good deal. Okay. Sorry, what were you gonna say? I think we interrupted you.
Oh, I think I was just winding up.
Cool. That's all right. That's all right. Well, all right. So that's one of our 2 film gig opportunities that is coming up. And then the other one is I got an email today. There's a filmmaker that is from France who's pre-producing a docu-series about a judicial scandal in Southern Oregon. He needs local videographers, bloggers, journalists or film students with their own gear to cover court hearings Friday, tomorrow. Yeah.
So a very quick turnaround.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I got that email at noon today. Maybe it was 1, you know?
yeah, I saw it too.
Yeah, exactly. So that'll be tomorrow in Medford from 1 to 3. And if anybody here is interested, I mean, not, this is going to be recorded and put up on our YouTube, but
Full disclosure though, if they're sending it this late, it's a Hail Mary.
absolutely. So, yeah, so that's what I have. Yeah, it's tomorrow in Medford from 1 to 3, $100 a person. And I've got the contact info if you're interested in that. If anybody here is interested in that. All right, and then so that was those two. The other thing is I want to talk about our Oscar short screening. It was a success. We had it was on Saturday the 1st, right before the Oscars, and we had a pretty great turnout, if I don't say so.
It's pretty packed.
Yeah, I think so. And I think last year it was more packed and we had fewer seats and we had people in the front row, but this time, we had fewer people, so nobody in the front row. So
Maybe
that,
it was a smaller rooms.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it went really well. We had trivia in between. We showed the live action shorts and the animated shorts, and we had trivia in between. And that was really fun. We gave out little trophies and stuff. We had people who, I think we had 2 different guys who got 3 trophies
Yeah.
each. Yeah. That was fun.
Well, they're usually the ones that they show up every year, and they're
Yes.
they're regulars.
They're
They're the film buffs.
They are the film buffs.
They
They're
do
the
the Jeopardy training. before.
exactly. They're the historians even, because you looked at those questions. You heard those questions.
I
They
mean,
were little tough, weren't
I
they?
will say, for some of them, I wouldn't say they weren't easy questions, but for somebody who's already been acquainted with general film knowledge and trivia, some of them were softballs of like, which was the film
Yes.
that won so many Oscars? Of The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Whoa, or
Yeah.
like big surprise.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was fun. And then we also had ballots, and everybody who was in attendance voted on what they thought should win or would win the Oscar shorts. And it was like a landslide for Magic Candies. You remember? Did you? Okay. So Magic Candies, which was what we voted best animated short, and The Last Ranger for best live action short.
Yeah.
And it was truly a landslide, and we were dead wrong. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. I don't have the actual winners, but it wasn't what we picked.
The Academy's selection process is mystifying.
Absolutely. And you'd think that the Academy would be more willing to watch, because you always hear about the people who vote, they don't actually watch the movies, right? Who knows if that's actually true, right? But
But they don't expect you to watch all of them, because I was doing the SAG Awards. this
yes, yeah,
year, and they said, we know you can't watch them all because there's hundreds with the TV shows and the movies.
exactly, right.
So I probably watched maybe 40%.
Yeah, it's tough though. Yeah. I would think that it would be at the top of my list to watch all of the short films first to like get them checked off the list,
Yeah.
and then go from there. But yeah, who knows? They're mystifying, right? So I had a great time. I thought it was a lot of fun. Thank you, Bowen, for coming and volunteering
Absolutely.
and helping and working the desk a little bit and getting your cardio in, running, giving
Oh, that is
giving
even
out the-
cardio. I'm kidding.
No, I know. I saw the way you were breathing.
Probably not as good as I used to be at, but I'm not quite too bad yet.
All good. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And then I'm starting to work on our next big event, which will be the Earth Day screening. We didn't do this last year because there was a lot of transition last year in the organization, but we have done how many years now have we done the Earth Day screening on? At least 2 years, at least 22 and 23.
Yeah. This would be.
Yeah.
When is that?
It'll be on the 20th of April. Yeah, that's tentative, that's when Earth Day is. So, yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll see. We might have to move it around, but that's what we're thinking about right now. And in the past, it has been short documentaries, right? Earth Day related,
Yes.
environmental related.
Yes.
Talk about a little bit about that for me. I haven't been to that yet.
So generally, the previous times we've hosted it, or at least the first time that I was able to be part of one, we were able to host it at the Klamath County Museum. Or we have either held it at the Klamath County Museum or the Fauvel Art Museum. Either one. I can't remember which exactly off the top of my head.
I think it was both.
Yeah, I think it has been both, or bare minimum at least one. But it's been I remember it had a pretty good turnout. We had a variety of different documentaries, of a lot of them also that we had present in current or current to that year or previous like
Film festival.
showings at our film festival, the Klamath Independent Film Festival. Since we always get a big number of documentaries, especially because of all the different ecological subject areas you could build a documentary from in Southern Oregon. So it's always been a really engaging and informative experience. It's been like well received by everyone, and especially the last time that we went there, that we had a lot of good snacks. So that was also a big hit.
Totally.
But among all of it, it's definitely, in terms of like raw entertainment, maybe not as flashy as like some of the other events that we do, or like not the Oscar shorts, but in terms of subject matter and things where you can go and really get a good like perspective on a variety of ecological subjects and earth related subjects, I'd say it's a great experience.
Oh, cool. Fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm, getting things going.
There's my 30-second elevator pitch. I did not realize I was going to make, but
No, I appreciate it. Sorry for putting you on the spot. I just haven't done one of those before. Yeah, so that's coming up.
Are the Oscar shorts still available to see anywhere, or is
You'd have to seek them out on your own. I don't know. It
it's
would
on
be
an
on
individual basis too.
Exactly,
Right,
exactly.
yeah.
That's the whole reason we do the screenings. We have
Yeah.
them all in one place, because if you can find them at all, they're scattered, right?
I
So
was stuck in Florida. So
yeah, sucks to be
I would have
you.
rather have been there for sure.
Absolutely. It was fun. I really dig it.
Good, yeah.
I like it just as much as TIFF, to be honest with you. But also it's bite-sized,
Right.
It's,
Well, you like it because it's not as much effort.
yeah, that's true. You know what? That's a great point,
Which
actually.
isn't even a problem. It's more just like,
Yeah.
it's one of those films that it's good both for the audience and for
Yeah.
us.
Yes, exactly. It's a nice evening, not a stressful 3, 4, 6 months.
Marathon.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was fun, and that'll be good. I also wanted to talk about just briefly, this month I got to visit the Ecola State Park in Astoria, which was one of the iconic filming locations for the Goonies. I got to stop and see the plaque on the Oregon Film Trail. For you guys who don't know, the Oregon Film Trail highlights spots like that all over the state, celebrating the movies that have been filmed in Oregon. It was really cool. It was beautiful. Has anybody been there?
I
to
have.
see it? Have you?
Do you know about the other fun fact of the film location in that area?
It was what's the Schwarzenegger movie? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. The Schwarzenegger movie Kindergarten Cop
Yeah.
was also filmed in Astoria, and the elementary school that is only a few blocks away from the Goonies house, that was the film location.
Absolutely.
good.
You know, while I was there, I saw a TikTok. I'm a TikTok baby. Don't judge me.
You're older than me.
Yeah. Yes. And I saw a TikTok about they just hired somebody to renovate that house, the Goonies house, the Goonies house. I saw it the day I went there, so that they had just posted that. So very interesting. I haven't kept up with that journey that they have been
Interesting.
documenting, but it is very cool. It was an interesting coincidence. Yeah. So for you guys who don't know, Klamath Falls also has a film trail marking downtown for Phoenix, Oregon. It was shot here. How many years ago do you think it was? Probably 4 or 5, something like that. Phoenix, Oregon was shot here.
Yeah, about 4,
Yeah.
maybe 3.
It's before I was here. And
It was right before COVID, right? So
Yeah.
it'd be like
Yeah.
5.
Like,
Oh, God.
yes, 5.
There you
because
go.
It happened right around it was shown March of 2020, which was right around the
Right.
time
Right,
that
yes,
everything started
yes.
locking down.
Yeah.
And because of that,
Yeah.
since it was essentially one of the only films being shown anywhere and ended up being the #1 film
In
for box
America.
office numbers in America for that weekend.
yeah, exactly. So that's I love that fact. That is incredible. Yeah, so it was shot here, and we've got a film trail marking downtown out in front of what used to be the Daily Bagel and is not that anymore.
I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, so that's very cool. And I bring that up because it is now Phoenix, Oregon is now available on Amazon as of a couple of weeks ago. So you can watch it
Yeah, well,
more
check it
easily
out.
now. Yeah. So I have not yet seen it, but it is at the top of my list. Yeah. And speaking of films that were shot here, Backseat Driver was shot here in October of 2023. It is a comedy that I've only seen the trailer. I haven't gotten to see it yet. It's despite it being submitted to KIFF now. It was shot by Roland Stafford, who is a friend of Klamath Film, and you know, they shot here, and we helped them. We gave them a lot of equipment to use for that shoot, and as well as some people. We gathered extras. And were you guys extras in that? No, okay.
It must have been before we.
Yeah.
involved.
It was right before I got here. It was
Right.
right before I got here. I'm sad that I missed out, but Anthony, who usually shows up to these, he got to be a PA on that, and it was very cool.
Nice.
It is done now. It has been submitted to KIFF. I'm certain it will be our opening night KIFF screening. And they actually just won Best Comedy at the Santa Fe Film Festival for that.
Nice.
So very, very cool. Yeah, so that's what I have here in terms of agenda. And it's now 6:38, and we can move on to introductions. So I figure we'll go around the table like we do every month and do introductions. And then we'll save Jesse for last here because we want to talk to you specifically about. There we go. Yeah, you got 5 or 6 more minutes. Yeah, so my name is Logan Baldwin. I'm the executive director of Klamath Film. I've been executive director for just over a year now. I moved here from Tennessee in August of 2023. And I've been hanging out with these guys ever since, kind of. I grew up in just north of Nashville. I have an associate's in video production, and just after we got the associate's degree, my wife and I moved to Memphis, where she went to law school at the U of M, and I was a product photographer for TJ Maxx and Marshalls. And then when she graduated, she didn't know exactly what she wanted to do, and she saw a job board in school, and one of the listings was to be a clerk for the courthouse here in Klamath Falls, Oregon. Very random. Turns out Klamath Falls, or Oregon specifically, just as a state, has a massive lack of legal professionals. So we, don't have kids. We're still young. Let's go do something crazy. Let's move to Klamath Falls, Oregon. And so we did. We did this, and we're crazy for it, right? But yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I'll pass the mic over to Bowen here, figuratively.
Wow, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. You can have both mics. And then if anybody has any projects they want to promote or need help with the exception of Jesse, because I'm sure we will get into it, you can go ahead and bring that up too.
Okay.
Hi. How are
So hello. I'm doing well. So hi, everybody. Most of you probably already know me, but my name is Bowen Browder. I am now officially the board chair for Klamath Film, so part of the board of directors. I was previously the vice chair. Yes, thank you. I've been involved with Klamath Film for, it's now been like about over 5 years, which is weird to think about because I started getting involved with Klamath Film when I was in college, and just throughout the whole process, in regards to film specifically, I've always had a big interest in, well, not always. I've always had an interest in storytelling in general, but in particular in my college years, I realized I really wanted to get into not just film, but like performance or maybe looking at just any different aspects of filmmaking. But overall, even on top of this, I've always generally just been in love with storytelling and the power that it holds with people and how stories can last forever if they're told well enough, and that if we have the right means to tell them, and creating that magic for people is something that means a lot to me. So being able to be part of this organization is always very engaging and rewarding. So being able to have events like this and different things is always really nice. So in my off time, which unfortunately I don't have for the time being, but working on that. I try to get more involved in different acting and performing roles. I'm thinking about potentially making a little dip into voice acting. Once I can set up some equipment or anything like that, I have some contacts I can get some advice from. I'm currently working on a treatment for my own short film that is still in the works, but I should actually be able to have done by this spring break, which is like I'm working on it. There's still some more things that I'm trying to work out, only because I'm a perfectionist.
Of course.
With that as well, the only other thing that I will say is for anyone that does listen is while my availability tends to be a big obstacle, I am always available for an opportunities since I'm not as deeply connected within the film industry as I want to be, or just have a web of kind of an inverse of me saying, oh, there's some projects and stuff that I'm looking for. Not yet, but if any of you know somebody who has projects available or something that they might be needing somebody that I could potentially be a good fit for, I'm always open, at least for consideration, and I'm very appreciative. Not to shamelessly plug.
Totally. Well, being a Klamath Film member, being a paid member will get you access to things like that whenever I get
Yep, first access.
Absolutely. Whenever I get opportunities like that in the email, it goes out to all of our paid members. So that's great. And you guys have gotten 2 emails today, I think, about the ones that I'd mentioned earlier. So
And equipment for $25 a year.
Not a month, a year. How crazy is that?
An entire library of professional grade film equipment.
Absolutely. So if you happen to get your voice acting gig, I know where you can get some equipment to rent. Though I'm sure you'll
borrow or things that I could use.
Exactly. To rent. And then you had something. Oh, your treatment. Can't wait to read it. You better bring it. Bring it, my man.
I know.
Can't wait.
Don't worry. It's more like writing a treatment as I've been through this process has basically been several months of me in a arena gladiatorial cage match with myself.
Yes, absolutely. I know the feeling. Trust me. All righty. Well, that'll
us all.
Thank you, Bowen, very much. Jesse, we'll skip you.
Sure.
Suck it. Next up.
I'm Molly. Molly Falleur. That's my husband. That's basically why I'm here. But I have done some acting and that kind of stuff, and I'm very interested in learning more. So I don't know.
Fantastic. You're the support wife.
I'm the
this
support
evening.
wife. Yeah.
Usually, but also this evening. Fantastic. All righty. Next up. Hi, Larry. How's it going?
Hey, good.
Good.
I'm Larry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I booked this industrial job for the training,
Cool.
thanks to the twins. And it sounds like fun. We're gonna be working 3 days. It's Monday night is a meeting, and Tuesday we work. Wednesday's the meeting just for an hour or so, and then Thursday we work.
Cool.
And then we go over everything, and it includes the room and pay and meals. So it's gonna be fun.
That's very cool that they've got the room for you too.
Yeah, they want us all there so we're not late.
Absolutely.
Because it's kind of away from everything.
Right. Well, people will be late anyway. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
We for Ernie and Emma this past summer, the Bruce Campbell project, we had people staying in a hotel and they were paying for it, and they had a shuttle.
I was there that day.
Yes, well, this was every day. I don't know what you're talking about, but they had a. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, wasn't there a cast member that missed their flight because they slept in too early?
No, I don't remember that actually.
Really?
No.
Okay.
What do you?
Yeah,
No.
there was a moment of there was a little big thing going on, not on set, but because of I was only there because I was an extra and I was on time. I promise you I was on time. I only heard it through the grapevine or overheard, but apparently there was an actress or someone that was on the project who needed to be somewhere else, like in LA or something, and they missed their flight for the morning, so they were doing some other kind of connecting flight. It's fine. It's totally meaningless right now.
But... Yeah. No, you're right. But I was just going to say that we had a shuttle at the hotel every single morning to get everybody to set, and people were still late. We had the shuttle and people were still late, Yeah, so it's fine.
I treat film sets as sacred.
Absolutely. Well, your responsibilities are sacred,
Yes.
aren't they, Bowen? No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. Cool. Alrighty. Well, Lee, I know you're micless tonight, but thank you for joining us. You prepared? Fantastic.
nice.
Yes.
Oh,
I know
wow.
you're an author. Yep.
Very cool.
Beautiful.
That's awesome.
Are those new, or have you had that done, or has that been done for a while?
That one's newly
Yeah.
published.
Fantastic.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Congratulations. And I also know that you are looking to sort of adapt that into a film, and that's sort of why you're here, to sort of make connections and such. So we're a little bit light tonight, but keep up with us and we'll have something for you. I
Promise you we get more bodies in other probably warmer months.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you for being here. And then last but not least, we have John. Hi, John. What's up? How are you doing? How's it going?
Oh, it's all right. Just been fighting a sinus infection, so probably best I'm not there right now.
Sure.
But anyway,
We appreciate
No.
your sacrifice.
yeah, believe me, you don't want it. I think it's a holdover from COVID, but anyway, it's one of those things. I've basically grew up here, since first grade, and after school went and worked different places in California, Utah, lived in Idaho too, briefly. So I've just been all over the West. Haven't lived in Washington, or Nevada, but anyways. So, I've just been back here for about the last 10 years and kind of joined Klamath Film, I think about the same time Bowen did. Feels like it's been about 5 years, but I could be wrong. I don't remember. Were you there before I was, or was I there before you were?
I think at least a little bit, just for a small period. But then I remember you kind of coming aboard a relatively short time after me.
Okay. Yeah, so it seemed like it was pretty close. But anyways, no, it's been good. It's just I've had to deal with a lot of family stuff, and so the big project I want to do is always getting pushed off and on hold, and hopefully I can make my dystopian or cyberpunk movie eventually. And we'll get there, but just don't hold your breath. But anyways, that's about me for now.
Yeah, well, I can't wait until you start putting pen to paper. I'm really excited to hear about it. You've been talking about it for a long time.
Well, I have a lot of the ideas that I want presented. So, I got the basic idea overview of the thing. But as far as the actual nitty-gritty screenplay dialogue and all that stuff, that's to be made.
Sure. All right. Well, I think it's time to introduce Jesse. Jesse, thank you there we go. Bye-bye.
It always feels the worst the first time.
Yeah.
The more you do this, or the more you're able to keep going.
So this month we're doing something a little bit different for our member meeting. Jesse is a Klamath Film member, and he has written his first short film called A Dark Wind, and he has enlisted Klamath Film's help to bring it to life. As our featured guest, Jesse will pitch his idea to the group, and then we'll conduct a table read after that, and then we'll let everybody sort of give some notes and some feedback, thorns and roses, it'll be sort of an interactive, like, we're not going to be hearing directly from industry professionals like we usually do, but it's sort of going to be a fun little change of pace where we get to work on something and produce something. So
We're ragtag anyways.
yeah, exactly.
Independent.
And then hopefully at the end we'll sort of talk about next steps and what we can do to maybe make this a Klamath Film original short film, so we'll see. Jesse, why don't you give us a rundown of who you are, what you do, and why you've decided to write this? And
So I'm Jesse Falleur. I've lived all around the Pacific Northwest and Korea for a year. Born in Washington, moved all around the Puget Sound area, moved down to a tiny town called Sutherland, Oregon, which was awful, and I hated it there. And my major goal during school was to get the hell out of the whole county, which I managed to do. It's where I met Molly, which was the only good thing about that county. But yeah, so we've been kind of all over the place. I work in tech. I have an associate's in like digital electronics that I've never really used. Taught myself programming, so now I work at a software company. I worked doing video game middleware assets for a while. Just recently diagnosed with ADHD, so I'm interested in all kinds of different stuff and have always taken on more than I can handle. And so, like Bowen said, like being a perfectionist, like John said, trying to create a project that I have plenty of projects that I care passionately about, and this specifically isn't one of them. And it's specifically designed to not be something that I am intensely passionate about, so we can actually get it done instead of being stuck in analysis paralysis forever. So yeah, that's we've been coming to the Klamath Film meetings for quite a few months now, and it seems like a lot of people have projects that they're passionate about and that they're working on over and over and over again. And I just wanted to try and come up with something that we could just make. I think it was George Romero who said he took a pottery class one time and the teacher split the class up into two groups. One group just had to make a perfect pot, and then the other group had to make as many pots as possible. And then at the end of the semester, the people who made as many pots as possible made much more beautiful pots than the people who tried to make the perfect pot.
Interesting.
So the point being, just make stuff.
Mhm.
And so that's what this is something that we can just make. And if it's stupid and people hate it, like that's kind of built into it. And like, yeah, the ending is kind of stupid. I get that, but there's also, some layers to it. So if I don't know, deeper layers aren't conveyed properly, then the end is just kind of stupid, and that's fine.
Totally.
Hey, Bowen, I was, I'm on board with that whole concept. It's like, I don't think doing your big passion project is probably the best thing. I think you need practice, like you're saying,
Yeah.
stuff that, because I've been thinking, maybe we should do a comedy first or some other things, just other things to kind of get a feel, get your feet in the water. So I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah, definitely. And so a lot of this came about just from the meetings and like what people have been working on and what they say they're interested in. So a lot of it is trying to build that in. So if there's any kind of skill that you want to practice or showcase or learn about or whatever, let's do that. Let's try and fit it into this. Let's try and create a calling card, so that way if you're trying to show off work to people, you can be like, hey, here's a thing that I did, and maybe a lot of it's stupid, but I'm proud of the part that I did, or whatever. And so yeah, just to let people experience it. And I guess that's why I'm interested in film. I'm kind of just interested in the whole gamut of human experience, like what it means to be a person. What does it mean to be a human? What does that take? And that's why I love stories and movies and video games, is because you get to be able to go experience, and books even, you get to go experience something completely different, a completely different, environment, something that you would never experience in your real life anyway. You can get insights into that sort of thing. So that's where a lot of my interest here comes from.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. And I think that I can see a lot more of that, the human experience in your second draft now that you sort of talked about. We had a meeting before. It was like, what is this about though, actually? You know what I mean? It's got to be about something, right?
Yeah.
So here it is. It seems like you found it. So
that did take a while. It did take till after our meeting when you're like, go through the basic steps. And I was like, oh yeah, I need to be able to communicate what this all means.
Totally. I mean, getting pen to paper is absolutely the first step. And so you've accomplished that. And now here we are. So bam.
Yeah.
Perfect. Before we get into your pitch, does anybody have any questions for Jesse about how this came about or why? Having heard none, Jesse, would you like to pitch your idea for us?
Yeah. So like I said, it's just basically something that we can just make and not get too emotionally invested in, have fun with. learn and experience and showcase what we're interested in. And like I said, the ending is what it is, and it can be considered kind of lowbrow humor, but there's also layers to it. So kind of ultimately what the theme is kind of the trauma and kind of difficulties that we experience as people just trying to go to work and put food on the table, basically, is what it ultimately comes down to. And then if we fail to convey that, it's a fart joke. So so yeah, I don't know, how do you want to?
Just tell us just like a couple sentences about the story.
Right. Yeah. So it's about a character who works essentially like absolving people of their sins. Like if you're familiar, there's an older movie called The Order with Heath Ledger, where he's what's called a sin eater. And that concept was super fascinating to me. And so this is kind of that, but completely removed from Catholicism or any, like, I don't want to have any.
It's agnostic.
It's completely agnostic. It's on a different planet. It's on, they're not even really humans, but it's all that kind of thing. I don't want to wade into those waters of, people's religions and that sort of thing. And so a lot of it is structured in a way that we can kind of do whatever we feel like with, or whatever we feel works. There's a lot of potential for suspension of disbelief because it mostly deals with death rituals, and people do weird stuff around death. So by that nature, anything that we kind of do here makes it a lot easier to suspend your disbelief because people do weird stuff around death. And so if whatever we come up with is too weird, you're like, well, it's, this person's dying. So yeah, it kind of centers around one character that goes to different dying people and performs kind of a last rites situation, taking on their sins, I suppose, of themselves, although it doesn't explicitly state any of that, to maintain separated from our religious institutions that we have. But yeah, so it's all a bit standoffish from that, but that's kind of the main idea. And then the massive toll that then takes on his body, and he has to just keep going.
Cool. Good deal. Any more preamble before you want to assign some characters to everybody, and we'll start the table read?
I don't think so.
Anything else we should know about it before we go in?
The overall environment and setting is pretty open. We can do a lot with that, I think. Overall, like I said, ultimately it might just be taken as a fart joke. So it's kind of a dark, surrealist kind of comedy.
Very dark.
I'm thinking probably like a science fantasy world, kind of like Dune, just to keep it more removed from our world. But yeah, that's kind of the situation, I think.
Sure. All right. Well, so you'll be reading the action lines. Do you want to take any other roles, and do you want to go ahead and start assigning some roles so we can get this going?
Sure. Yeah, there's far less people here than I was expecting. So does anyone want to call out for anything they care for?
I'll do the rooted. We did one.
The rooted one for Molly, which I have listed already. There is, in here, there's a tentative cast list. John, did you get the link there to the script? You're muted.
He's muted now, but I do remember.
Yes, I did. I'm trying to tab over to it.
Mhm.
Sure.
So I might be able to read something on there if you want. But I
Okay.
gotta,
I mean, so again, in thinking about the people that normally show up to these things, I was trying to just guess and slot people into roles that might work. If
Yeah.
there's
Based on first
anything.
impressions.
This is not a casting either. So
Yeah,
it could be-
exactly, yeah.
You know, gender doesn't matter. None of that matters.
Right.
Just whoever you think. Just start handing. You know, for all intents and purposes, we can draw for random. You know,
Sure.
whatever
Well,
works
also,
for you.
Something as well is that if you were to like with each character, if you wanted some like keywords attached to them of like the type of
Mhm.
expression you wanted to have from them, the type of
Sure.
like
Yeah.
way that you envision them being expressed of
Mhm.
like of the bright faced person. Of course, if you wanted them to be enthusiastic or lively or anything like that, if you had that for all of us for each of the different characters and something that
Sure.
with any
Yeah.
of us, and that I'm happy to take on multiple parts.
Mhm.
At bare minimum, I'm sure like we're all able to like be
Totally.
happy to double up.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I'll pick out ones according to like not necessarily just to our tastes, but what might fit for the ideas you're looking for.
Totally.
Yeah. So I'm taking on the main role of the consumer, mostly because I don't think I can ask anyone to do the last scene.
Sure.
And
It's
then
an active job to throw away their dignity.
Sure, yeah. Either. Yeah, we could just, I guess, do kind of round robin. Bowen, do you want to do the bright faced person?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay. And then Molly is the rooted one, and Larry as Abe, which I think is one line. We don't need to worry about the extras. And then John, I have you for the sacred director. Does that work?
fine.
All right.
Sounds so excited.
Sorry, it's the sinus.
Yeah, sure. Not a problem.
Heard.
And then Molly as the mother. Logan, do you want to do the girl?
Sure. I'll be the girl.
And then personal assistant Bowen. Hey, that worked out. Look at that. And then I guess Larry as the holy one. Okay. And then I have Logan already as the manager. Bowen, do you want to be the old woman?
Sure.
Cool. All right.
Would you like to go through and give us specifically one keyword, like Bowen was saying?
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I could do one keyword, but
Number keywords and short phrases.
yeah. So
Yeah.
for the bright faced person, that's like I look at this as like someone who, like Molly was a teacher, public school for a long time, and a lot of times we would have people that are like, "Oh, I want to be a teacher," and we're like, "Oh, I don't want to do that." Yeah, someone who's very eager to do a thing.
Eager, upstart, like
Yeah, very eager, and then doesn't understand the realities of what that takes.
okay. So naive.
Yes, naive and eager. Yeah. And then the rooted one is a naturalistic based kind of holy person. So yeah.
Attuned to nature.
Yeah. So and then Abe is an old gambler on his deathbed who still cares about him. The sacred director is another one of the holy people, like a priest or that kind of thing. They are a bit in here. I'd written that they're like young and kind of bumbly and don't really know what they're doing. Doesn't have to be young necessarily, but yeah, just someone who where like you work with them and you're like, you really don't, how did you get here? Like you don't know what you're doing. What is happening? Why am I working with you? That kind of thing.
Michael Scott.
Sure. The mother is a person who is very wrapped up in their own career kind of thing. Very self-absorbed, very your typical
Workaholic.
yeah, your typical kind of workaholic, doesn't really pay attention to their family, very much focused on how they are perceived, but doesn't even really care about their own family, their own daughter. And then the girl is like a young lost girl who's done something terrible, but nobody really knows. Everyone thinks it was an accident. The personal assistant, I guess. So for the personal assistant and the Holy One to the old woman is I think Ghislaine Maxwell. When I think of the old woman, like the Jeffrey Epstein's, like, yes, terrible,
Okay.
terrible, the worst
Sour
possible,
taste in your mouth.
the worst possible person you could think of as an old woman.
Well, then for the personal assistant, is that the same thing?
Oh, right.
Or-
And so then the personal assistant and the Holy One are like people that basically like kowtow to this person.
Or like what?
They kowtow to this person.
Okay,
They
so
like,
so the
they're-
personal assistant is beneath the old woman.
yeah, it's the old woman's personal assistant. And then the Holy, so it's like a yes man kind of person.
Okay, is it more like cowardly, or
Yes.
is it okay? So kind of like the Star Scream to the Megatron.
Not familiar that.
Oh, really?
much.
Wow. Okay. Dang. Then that would be something of yes, a
Like a
cowardly.
reek kind of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Like that kind of thing. Like
Too, I would say he's
a little bit. Yeah, the Holy One is.
What page is the Holy One's line on?
Oof. Good question. We numbered these today, so
1, 2, 3.
yeah, that's the last scene, yeah, or
Okay.
the last death ritual. So the Holy One, yeah,
I
Perfect.
can't believe they didn't get
The Holy One puts it underneath.
I know, right?
so like
I don't know that they have lines actually.
Haven't seen anything for him. yet.
Yeah, they might not have lines, which we can expand and add lines or
We'll give you something to do, Larry.
yeah.
I got one line. What's my line?
Yeah.
Yes.
I could do it if you want.
And then the manager is just like your typical corporate salesy kind of middle manager person that's just trying to get the most out of all their people, the most money that they can.
like to an exaggerated degree, or kind of more what you would expect in a. Do you want this character to feel real, or more like a caricature? of this?
More realistic.
Okay.
It's more of a, but just that, like, I don't know if you're familiar with like salesy guys that very much speak in sports metaphors and
I used to be one.
sure. Okay.
Just not for sales. I was an admissions counselor for a college.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I'm like thinking, I don't know. I work in tech and software, and the amount of sales guys that rely on sports metaphors is astounding. I was like, I thought we were all nerds here, not rah, go get them sports
Go get him,
people.
Tiger.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of thing. And a lot of this is kind of allegorical and based on a lot of my worst experiences and jobs that I've had. So that's where a lot of this came.
There's a lot of lines.
All right,
Okay.
I'll take it.
I must have spaced entirely when you mentioned the girl. My only other part. Would you- I must have been writing a note or something. like
Sure,
that.
yeah,
Would
so
you do
the-
that one for me?
The girl is a young girl who doesn't get enough love or attention from her mother and is
Lost.
kind of lost and but is also terminal and is dying and has a part of her past that everyone thought was an accident that was not. And
She's got a lot of secrets.
yeah, so she's very scared and
Yeah.
secretive.
Okay. All right. That's everybody, right?
Let's
think so.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Absolutely.
Sure.
I highlighters, but I was a teacher. I don't know. Oh, sorry.
I'm so sorry I brought highlighters.
I don't know.
Please
I
forgive me.
put everything in weird folders.
Yeah, without Molly, I wouldn't be scattered to the wind and not know how to do anything.
You got them. I might as well use it.
And then I guess one thing to note, since it comes up kind of early, so the consumer, the main character, only communicates in a language that is through like facial expressions. There's no vocals, non-verbally, but it is like a whole language based on like facial tics kind of thing.
Interesting. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, he never speaks.
Yeah. And so that's when the bright-faced person comes up, they're trying to speak to the consumer in their language or in this language that is complicated to grasp, not unlike programming.
It may be that the manager doesn't have any lines either, actually.
At the very end,
Okay.
the manager's only at the very end is the manager.
Yeah,
Voice.
last page.
Voice.
Yeah. No, in the end it will zoom. Yeah, the manager is the voice. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, in the actual end, it will zoom out and then you will see the manager talking.
It's labeled as voice.
But yeah, I've labeled it as voice.
Got it. Okay. I think it's, unless you got anything else, I think it's time to get started.
All right, sounds good. So first scene starts out outside in a forest during the day. A pair of bare feet are walking through the leaves, rocks, and twigs. We see the consumer dressed elegantly and elaborately, but alternatively. So I kind of tried to pull together what I have to give that bit of an impression. He clearly operates on the fringes of society. His hands are adorned with rings and his face with piercings. He cracks every knuckle as he walks. So as we're going along, the introduction will be, it's actually really hard to do with all these rings on, but I can actually crack every knuckle on my hand. So that kind of thing.
There's Foley work.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Let's just to get it out of the way, let's go ahead and just stick to the script. Cool.
He
Sorry,
approaches.
I hate to shut you down.
No, it's good.
Let's do it.
He approaches a gathering of people. They are seated before an altar in rows of chairs. Upon the altar is an old man, Abe. Behind the old man is an elaborately and naturalistically adorned holy person, the rooted one. The sound of murmurs fills the air as the consumer walks up the aisle. Several guests approach and speak to the man. Others are seated in rows of chairs, their faces full of curiosity. A bright-faced individual approaches from the crowd, their face twitching erratically as they approach the consumer. So that would be like Bowen. All right. The consumer's face contorts, shakes his head slightly, and breaks into a grin.
Damn, I've been practicing.
The consumer gives a gracious nod, then turns again towards the altar. The consumer, graceful but unsettling, reaches the altar where Abe lies. He looks sick and pained, but hopeful. The consumer stops before the altar, bowing slightly to Abe and then to the rooted one. The consumer's face twitches with intention.
The consumer says that the burdens of our dear friend Abe shall be lifted. He will enter into an enduring peace. Though the journey continues beyond our sight, the work done here offers reprieve. In a few moments, Abe shall be free from pain.
The consumer turns his attention to Abe, who gives a strained smile and a nod. The ritual begins. The consumer reaches into their coat, pulling out a cloth and draping it over Abe's torso. He then produces an apparatus that looks vaguely like a wooden four-legged jellyfish. He holds it above Abe's chest. The legs dangle, and in a snap, the four legs spring out horizontally, forming an X. From the ends of each leg, more leg folds down, creating a stand. In the center, the jellyfish's head is a small bowl. The consumer pours a fizzling liquid into the bowl. He looks at Abe, who nods. The consumer leans over and places his ear near Abe's mouth.
I've gambled away my life. And all my friends and family have brought you to me here. I'm the luckiest man alive. Well, for the moment.
The consumer straightens up and gives Abe a small grin and a nod. The ritual intensifies, and the consumer begins taking quick, shallow breaths. Abe begins a deep inhale. At the same time, the consumer exhales as much as possible. At the opposite extents of each of their breaths, bam! A loud and jarring crack erupts from the apparatus. Abe exhales a light gray vapor. The consumer inhales, drawing in the blackness from the vapor, leaving only pale white behind. The rooted one begins a separate kind of ritual with the remaining white vapor. Abe dies peacefully. His face looks relaxed and content. The rooted one continues their ritual without acknowledging the consumer. The guests watch with solemn eyes. The consumer's skin is paler, and he appears to have a slight eyeliner now. The consumer turns and begins walking back down the aisle. The crowd remains silent, focused on the altar. As he passes the last row, a buzzing noise comes from his wrist. The consumer raises his wrist near his face, which then becomes bathed in a pale blue light. His face tightens. He takes a deep breath and exhales with a tremble. He cracks his neck and continues walking away from the crowd. Cut to the external of a palliative care center, late afternoon. A young girl lies on a gurney within brutalist architecture. Her eyes wide with fear. Beside her stands her high-strung mother. She's professionally dressed and well. She seems impatient and aggravated. The sacred director stands next to the mother. The sacred director's ritual dress looks borderline ridiculous, and this one is young and a bit bumbly. The consumer enters, his presence immediately felt. He nods towards the sacred director and then to the mother. The girl looks up at the consumer, her face trembling. He reaches out for her hand and holding it strokes her hair. He reaches into his inner jacket pocket and dusts some fine powder just below her face. She calms down and starts breathing almost normally. The consumer looks at the sacred director. The consumer begins communicating with facial twitches.
I don't.
In a brief, subtle moment, the consumer takes a moment to collect himself, closes eyes with a slight sigh, with a bowing of his head, with a bowing of the head and turning away. The consumer looks back at the sacred director and begins again with the facial twitches, more slowly and deliberately this time.
Oh, I didn't.
The
I
sacred
forgot. Okay, well, yeah.
No, you're good. The sacred director stops and glances at the mother, then mouths,
I forgot.
Well, what's going on? Can we please get going? She doesn't have much time left.
The mother says this in a way that subtly indicates that it's her, the mother, that is on a tight schedule.
Yes, we are just clarifying some of the particulars. She is so young, and surely
Whispering, leaning in towards the consumer, turning his head slightly away from the mother.
it's not like she's some monster.
Straightening back up in an air of bravado washing over.
Let's proceed to
Stumbles a bit.
bring her peace so that we may start
Pause, side eye to the mother.
the grieving process.
The mother.
Okay. Is there some kind of problem here?
The sacred director recoils slightly from her and looks pleadingly at the consumer. The consumer pulls the cloth from his coat and drapes it over the girl. He begins the ritual. Cut to. The apparatus is set up and the consumer leans over to the girl.
It wasn't an accident. I killed him on purpose. He was being so annoying. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
What did she just?
Shh.
The mother is taken aback. The sacred director looks at the girl and places a hand on her shoulder. She looks up at him. The sacred director nods assuringly and then looks at the consumer, who is staring daggers back at him. The sacred director quickly shakes his head back and forth, almost in a tremble, as he mouths the words, I didn't know.
I didn't know.
The girl looks towards the consumer expectantly. The consumer looks back at her. His cold expression softens a little. He starts with the quick, shallow breaths. The mother is staring intently. Bam! The mother recoils and turns away slightly with a 1,000-yard stare. The consumer consumes the black from the medium gray vapor exhaled by the girl. The sacred director performs a ritual with the remaining white vapor. As the consumer comes up, his complexion is far lighter, now with dark tendrils that snake up out from under his collar and up his neck. The girl's now deceased body releases slow, bubbling flatulence.
Oh, come on! How rude!
She turns her head away in disgust. This consumer glares at the mother in disgust without her noticing him. He turns toward the sacred director, his face unchanged. The two's eyes meet. The consumer makes a quick glance towards the mother and then back towards the sacred director.
It is normal for the bowels to evacuate upon demise.
The consumer lets out an exasperated sigh.
Oh, also, the process is complete.
The mother looks at the director, who makes a quick gesture to the consumer.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course.
The mother makes a quick gesture. The consumer gets a notification. He checks the light on his wrist, gives a gracious nod, and walks off the same direction he came. Cut to the external of a wealthy house in the evening. A personal assistant waits outside the grand home, waiting in anticipation. The consumer walks into frame, their movements slow and deliberate. As the consumer approaches, the personal assistant notices his condition.
Oh my, you're not in the condition that I expected. Are you sure you can handle this? She's quite advanced from a different time, if you know.
The consumer raises his hand for the assistant to stop. The consumer gestures towards the door.
Okay, let's proceed.
Interior of the wealthy house. The consumer follows the personal assistant into a lavish bedroom. In the bed lies an old woman, her frail body barely able to move. The holy person stands at her side. He wears long, dark robes with a long streak of color down one side. On his head is something that vaguely resembles a bird cage with thick metal bands. On the inside of the cage are rounded metal protrusions. The consumer approaches, standing before the old woman. The personal assistant watches nervously. The holy person silently stares wide-eyed at the consumer, who meets his gaze. The consumer walks to the bedside.
Let's get on with it then.
The consumer begins the preparations of the ritual by setting up the apparatus and leans down to hear her.
Yes, fine. Killed those girls when they were too old to be trafficked.
The consumer straightens up and stares at her coldly. The holy person and assistant silently stare at the floor. The old woman's defiant face stares back and at the consumer for a moment. Then her gaze slowly lowers and becomes solemn. Her eyes start to well up.
I didn't have a choice, really. He would have killed me or worse. I've tried to make up for it. Please, I've really tried. You know, right? You believe me? You must believe me. Please, everything I have is yours. Everything. Everything? Everything. Wouldn't have to deal with old fools like me anymore. You could do whatever you like. See to it.
The personal assistant quickly moves out of the room. The consumer is seething. He closes his eyes and begins breathing rapidly. His eyes flick open, staring intently at her with a stern face. Her eyes widen. He leans in close to her. She takes a deep breath. Dark gray vapor exits her mouth. The consumer consumes a large amount of black vapor. A small amount of white is left over. The holy person performs a small ritual with the remaining white vapor and inhales some vapor for himself. As the consumer rises, his eyes are all black. He stumbles backwards and falls into the wall. A painting crashes down onto his head. The holy person and assistant rush over to help. The consumer's skin is now almost all black. His now black head pokes out of a painting of a young fairy tale princess sitting amongst woodland creatures.
Are you going to make it?
The consumer nods. Cut to external by the ocean at night. Steps lead up to a large stone dais. Beyond the dais, we see an ocean framed by large cliff walls. Between the rock walls of the canyon, several heavenly bodies are moving slowly into what will be alignment. The consumer begins to walk up the stairs. He's twitchy. His movements feel distorted and unnatural. He pulls off his blazer and lets it fall to the ground as he climbs. He removes his vest and shirt, leaving a trail of clothes. His body is monstrous. His pants fall to the floor. The rings from his fingers fall and tumble down the stairs. His monstrous nude body pauses on the stairs, right leg obscuring the groin. His face, as it contorts wildly, transitions into claymation. His body melts into the ground, and the sins of the three are played out in claymation. His body is reconstructed between each sin, more monstrous than before. He reaches the top of the stairs and walks to the center of the dais and turns toward the sea, raising his arms in a Y. The planets are nearly in alignment. He turns around at the groin. It looks like a cassowary's foot instead of genitals. He bends down, forward, and down. He is in the fetal position. He extends each leg out slightly so he is up on his knees, face in his hands. The planets come into alignment. Brah! An enormous fart leaves his body. A huge dark cloud erupts out. The wind picks up and carries the cloud out to sea. He stands up. His body is normal. He closes his eyes and he sighs. As the consumer turns to leave the dais, we begin to see other daises and other figures. We hear a disembodied voice.
Hey, good job, hey, Bobby. You really crushed it with your numbers this week. What else do we have for me?
We see a dozen or more dioceses in various states of use. Our consumer, Bobby, checks his wrist notification and gives a small triumphant wave towards the operations center where the voice is.
That thing you do with the planets always cracks me up.
Fading to black.
Better get the bonus this time.
End credits.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. Good stuff. So, that it's weird and it's interesting. But that's great though, right? We should be
Yes.
making weird and interesting.
So the tone of this the entire time is still meant to be like absurd, but in a comedic tone, or absurd and as in played straight.
Played straight. Like, have you seen Atlanta? So Atlanta is like a surrealist kind of thing.
This reminds me of something I have seen that is like it's absurd and black.
Yeah.
And it's really old and it was only on like it was on Adult Swim years and years ago. Something called Xavier Renegading.
Okay.
Not to say that it is actually accurate to what you were envisioning. It's just
Sure.
the impression that I initially got. Please feel free to take that as feedback of whether like if you find Xavier Renegade Angel accurate or not. But essentially, everything about that series, from its designs, its dialogue, its structures of narrative, if you can even call it that,
Right.
are meant to be kind of as intentionally like in your face, obscure and unintelligible, but
Mhm.
actually within all of it, there still is a lot of meaning. It's
Right.
just sort of intentionally veiling itself in layers and layers of many different forms of irony
Mhm.
and or it essentially is completely careless to how much the audience understands what it's doing.
Sure. Yeah. Not quite that much. I guess it's more.
Bowen, Lee's got something in the chat to share.
Oh,
I'm wondering if you might go full Bizarro with this.
how do you mean?
The genre.
Yeah, I guess it's, I'm not familiar with that very well. So I guess, yeah, it's sort of like one of the things that I realized kind of recently is the emotion that I kind of enjoy most is when I go, what the fuck was that?
So bizarro fiction is contemporary literature genre that emphasizes weirdness, absurdity, and entertainment, often blending elements of surrealism, satire, and the grotesque.
Yeah,
Sure.
sounds
like
that actually sounds exactly right.
very out there, intentionally so.
Yeah.
No one brings up the strangeness. Yeah. I think about
Yeah,
Bryan Cranston. Bryan
Yeah.
Cranston has a quote where he's talking about playing comedy, and
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
I think so. Yeah,
He, Hal,
Yeah.
him in the middle. He
Yeah.
says that you have to play it when, you have to play it as straight as you possibly can, because
Yeah.
even though funny things are happening, the comedy comes from the characters not realizing that it's funny.
Yeah.
So you play it.
Yeah,
straight.
and I think the other part of that quote is he talks about, like, as an actor, if you cry, that lets the audience off the hook, so they don't have to cry.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you're holding it back, like you're trying not to cry or whatever, that imparts it onto the audience that they're the ones that have to cry to alleviate that emotional tension.
Right.
So yeah, in this way, it's all supposed to be straight, but it's all like completely like absurdist, as like, what the hell is happening kind of thing. Like if you haven't seen Atlanta by,
Donald Glover.
yes, thank you. All I could think of was Childish Gambino,
Yeah.
but Donald Glover, it's 4 seasons of it's called like Afro surrealism, where it's like a lot of things that are from his life that he's kind of like amped up to a surrealist level.
Yeah.
Where you're like, it's like everything seems kind of normal until it really, really doesn't.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, what the hell was that? But everyone just has to go about their day anyway.
Yeah.
Like you have to ignore the batshit insanity that's going on around you just to get through the day. So that's kind of the vibe, I guess, is like everything is going insane, but like
like Bando Film in the New World.
not familiar with that.
That's another movie that
Okay.
Glover is making.
Oh, okay. Cool. Possibly. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I think it's good to go ahead and start giving notes now too, because that's kind of what I want this to be, is like
Yeah.
feedback.
Absolutely.
Thorns and roses. So don't just like, nobody should just say, yeah, this sucks. We should, you know what I mean? Which it doesn't, right? I mean, it does a little bit because it's the first thing, but that's the whole point of this, is let's make it suck less, right? Nobody got to read your first, well, nobody except for Molly got to read your first little treatment, was basically what it was.
Yeah.
And so this is like a clear improvement to me. You
Yeah.
took a lot of the things that I had mentioned about having a theme and
Yeah.
having, a statement sort of, and giving a character's arcs, and a character and arc,
Yeah.
and you took it and you went and did it, and you had a statement to say. So it's coming along. This is a good next step. Absolutely.
So on the theme, I kind of think about it like, Requiem for a Dream. It's described as the hero of Requiem for a Dream is the addiction. Like what do you call it? The rising and falling action and all that. It's all from like the addiction being the protagonist, basically.
Mhm.
And I feel like it was kind of a similar thing with have you guys seen Kids?
Mhm.
From 95, I think. It was Harmony Korine's first movie. It was bonkers. You should watch it if you can. It's freaking gritty, and it was the biggest thing one of the summers when it came out.
All of you are going to hate me, but I was just realizing 1995 is 30 years ago.
I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Were you born yet?
No. 5 more years to go.
But so in that, it's kind of like sex addiction is the protagonist of the movie. And so in this, I feel like it's almost like corporate greed is the protagonist of the story. So it's kind of like, I guess, a little more like subtle, or what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it, but
Yeah. So I think this is a marked improvement, and I want to talk more about that. My
Yeah.
biggest note for this one is something that we've already talked about, Larry and I specifically, about how you can cut a lot of this down. I bet this is 4 pages. You know
Okay.
what I mean? I just in the way that you write it and the way that it's formatted and such.
right.
I've got let's see. Larry mentioned direction, cutting down on it. I think, and please step in if you have a different idea about this, but I think the action lines are more about what the characters are doing and not how they're doing it, because that's up to the actors.
Sure.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Larry? What do you?
I think the actors are gonna, the director's gonna block it the way he wants it to go, but the actors are gonna
Yeah.
perform all the movements.
Right.
Exactly. So
And, I had a thought, if you want to do it, is why don't we just read through it without any direction and just the lines?
mhm.
Sure.
And then it'll be real quick, and
Yeah, it
you'll
will.
see how long, you're gonna have the consumer doing all this stuff,
Right.
but all the speaking roles, that will go real quick.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of this is meant to be like visual. Yeah. So the lines are kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then why don't you call the consumer Bobby from the beginning?
Yeah, that was going to be another thing. It's, I think that Bobby is his name, right? So
sure. Yeah. I
that's-
mean, I guess I wanted it to be kind of obscured that
Yeah.
like, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to mention is that like, sure, just like definitely from the outset of visually presented within the film, like
Yes.
imagining it in the frame in your mind of, it's not like he's going to have a name
I'll
tag
tell
saying
him
how
later.
his
Exactly.
name is
Yeah.
gonna be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That,
This-
at least when from writing the script, when it comes to something you're presenting to other people, especially at least within the meta context of people that you'd want to also have help working on this project,
Right.
clarity is absolutely like just it's beneficial for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I get it's like a twist
Bowen?
that he,
Lee's got a few comments.
let's see. When you're writing a screenplay, you want to write through the camera's eye. Also, if you use a standard format, it will time out to a minute a page.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
A minute of
But
screen
you
time.
initially meant this as a treatment, right? Not a full script.
I don't know.
Okay.
It was just something that I was writing as I was falling asleep,
Totally.
and
Yeah, your first draft was definitely
Yeah.
a treatment, and this
Feels more substantial.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. This is sort of like a mix between the two. You're working, we're
Yeah.
almost there.
yeah.
A script. On the topic of Bobby, I totally agree. It works. I get that it's like a twist, but for the screenplay, this is like our map. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Everything needs to be based on clarity and stuff. So the people who are reading the script, they don't need
Right.
the twist. They need the information. So
Yeah, I guess just like as the initial presentation of it
Yeah.
to
sure, yeah,
hide that twist, I guess,
sure,
or not. Yeah, whatever.
yeah.
Were you gonna have like any narration of the consumer? No. Okay.
I wasn't thinking about planning on that.
And then I also mentioned before about line breaks.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna, sorry, I think I interrupted you, Larry, in terms of, did you want us to do like the
Oh,
no
yeah.
direction line read?
Yeah.
If you guys want to.
Yeah,
It'll go a lot quicker.
So does that
Totally,
mean
yeah.
we don't even look at the narration, we just start out
Yeah,
from line to
just
line?
lines. Just lines.
Okay, then I will start it from the very beginning
Yeah.
with the very first line.
I think you can set the scene. You can set the scene
Oh, right,
literally just like
Yeah. Exterior
Extra.
forest shot.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
At
from
a
there.
funeral.
All right. Damn, I've been practicing.
And then,
Oh, that'd be me, right?
yes,
The consumer says that the burdens of our dear friend Abe shall be lifted. He will enter into enduring peace. Though the journey continues beyond our sight, the work done here offers reprieve. In a few moments, Abe shall be free from pain.
I gambled my life away. And all of my friends and family have brought you to me. I'm the luckiest man alive. Well, for the moment.
Yeah. Then next scene, right?
Stick of director.
Of exterior palliative care center, late afternoon.
Yeah.
I don't. Oh, I didn't.
What's going on? Can we please get going? She doesn't have much time left.
Oh,
Did you catch that, John?
well, I got to scroll. So
Yeah.
so what was the last thing you said there? She
You're
doesn't
like-
have much time left. Okay.
What's going on is, yeah.
Okay. Yes. We're just clarifying some of the particulars. She's so young, and surely it's not like she's some monster. Let's proceed to bring her peace so that we may start the grieving process.
Is there some kind of problem here?
It wasn't an accident. I killed him on purpose. He was being so annoying. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
What did she just?
Shh! I didn't know.
Oh, come on, how rude.
Hold on. Oh, it's normal for the bowels to evacuate upon demise. Oh, also, the process is complete.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course.
Have exterior wealthy house evening.
Oh my, you're not in the condition that I expected. Are you sure you can handle this? She's quite advanced in years. From a different time, if you know. Okay, let's proceed.
Interior wealthy house evening.
Let's get on with it then. Yes, fine. I killed those girls when they were too old to be trafficked. I didn't have a choice, really. He would have killed me, or worse. I've tried to make up for it. Please, I've really tried. You know, right? You believe me. You must believe me. Please, everything I have is yours. Everything. Everything? Everything. You wouldn't have to deal with old fools like me anymore. You can do whatever you like. See to it. Are you going to make it?
Cut to exterior ocean night. Hey, good job, Bubby. You really crushed your numbers this week. What else you have for me? That thing you do with the planets always cracks me up. Better get my bonus this time. Yeah.
So how did that feel from your perspective?
Yeah.
I don't know, hollow.
Yeah.
Like it's missing everything.
Yeah. Well, I think sort of the point is like it takes more time to read the action lines than
Right.
than it will to see it, right? So that took us right at 5 minutes to do the whole thing, you know what I mean? Whereas the other took us what, 20 minutes or something like that.
Sure.
And when you're actually doing this and designing, It's just that you're gonna be on the scene doing these things, walking it out,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be quick.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I guess like it's hard for me to write it out as a screenplay because already see it as a movie in my head.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure like what I should be writing out and what I shouldn't be,
Right.
you know?
Well, when you think of a movie as being a visual format where you can almost have no dialogue,
Yeah.
yeah, it gets a little tricky. I mean, I haven't looked at a lot of scripts. Some of you have. So, my understanding is they just kind of set the scene and then they have the text, to be said.
Dialogue.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that usually what you usually are normal to see, like Larry? I mean, do you just kind of like they set the scene and then it just kind of flows, or do they give a little bit of hints in there about how they should, or the feeling that they should have as they can convey what's to be said, or what?
Lee?
Lee says there's character direction as well.
Yes, in terms of in a screenplay, there is character direction that can be included there.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's mostly minimal though, right? Because that's the
I
job
don't-
of the actor to sort of interpret, and to
I don't know. Like, so what I was reading through was a couple of like Tarantino's screenplays, and he has
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of detail in that. So
he's an anomaly in the first place, though.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
fair.
Lee says only what the camera sees.
genuinely, what I can tell you though is that
Yeah.
yes, like there are conventions,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean you have to stick to them
Right.
Sure.
overall.
Yeah. And so like just going on what the camera sees, yeah, I very much wasn't trying to do what anyone was thinking
And
or
as,
how
as
they
myself,
felt.
I myself
or-
am right now, the film that I'm working on is also very low dialogue. So
Right.
in that facing that same point of mine is still in the treatment phase.
Right.
So it's much less like needs to go in much less detail, but it's in that same note of, essentially striking that balance between what's the exact amount of information I need to physically describe about what's happening.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily need to create redundant details.
Right.
Not
Right.
that I say anything here is redundant per
Right.
se.
The screenplay is like a blueprint and not like a novel,
Right, and that it's
not
meant to
meant
be-
to be read for entertainment.
It's meant to be
Like-
read through quickly for the understanding of everyone involved with it.
Exactly. I have
Sure.
at the
Okay.
top of page 5 circled, where it is the line of the sacred director. She's so young, and Shirley whispering, leaning toward the consumer. All your parentheticals.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Cut it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I like the best way I could also think about it is, have you ever built a Lego set
Yeah.
of like the manual for a Lego set, or like the instructions, or even like building like a shelf?
Hmm.
That's been something that I've been trying to keep into my mind of like, okay, how can I write this in a way that's like the Lego manual, and that it doesn't have the magic just yet, just as it is, because when you just have the manual, it's not like there are pieces there. But if you
Right.
follow the instructions and build the right pieces along with it,
Yep.
following those directions, you can create something that has that intended, you get to create the thing that you want,
Hmm.
Exactly.
if that makes sense.
It is awesome that you can see all of this, though. It
Yeah.
really is. Just having that picture is perfect. And if you're the one that's directing it,
Yeah.
then
Yeah, I mean, so like that one bit where you're saying where you changing the focus to be looking at the mother to say something. I would just guess you would just say something like to the mother,
Well,
and
then that's like
then the
camera
text.
direction, right? Which you're not supposed to have.
yeah, exactly. I disagree. I think you would cut that.
Well, how would you know then who that is directed to?
I think it's obvious
And-
from the context clues of the script.
Really?
Yeah, well, because I mean,
I don't know if I would have
They're
picked
only-
up on that
there's only two-
unless
at
it
that
was
point, is
unless
that
I knew that was
after-
being directed. I mean, you don't have to say how it's done, but you have to maybe say that this comment is to this person. That makes sense that you would say something like that, but not necessarily the person then reads it, then they get the idea of how they would want to say it.
right.
I just had a
And
question.
if it,
too.
I don't know, that's just my thought.
Yeah.
Right. I just had a question. For like all the little parts where it's kind of talking about how the character's talking, would that make sense to put that like a little blurb about each character at the very beginning, like who they are?
Oh yeah,
Like
absolutely.
just
Yeah.
add in like they're kind of
Having that sort of
Yeah.
hint and
yes.
I
of
was
that
thinking,
sort
yeah,
of
having
just
a
basic
list of
character
characters.
description of, or at the very least, to whatever degree you feel is sufficient to create a good like image in the mind of the actor.
Yeah.
And that it shouldn't be a novel for each character.
Right. Like
Right.
just a
But
good
it should be a-
paragraph each.
yes,
You know,
I
I
mean-
think you could fill the page and just one page of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
And
a
then-
quick
yeah.
sketch of what they are.
And
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
not even to be like super nerdy about it, but like an example could be like if you were to make a converted improv prompt for this kind of character, how would you write it? So that how could you say it in as simple of terms that you could get the actor who would hear it for the first time to kind of get it?
Yeah.
Right.
One or two sentences, you know.
Some of it,
Whose line is it anyway, where they're
Yes,
like,
or like
Right.
drop out or anything like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
good call.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Of like, how would you
Oh,
describe
wow.
it to get an
Okay, yeah.
improv actor to immediately get into that character?
That helps a
Yeah.
lot. Really.
I was just thinking, like, it feels like Saturday Night Live. Like, you got to get the lines out real fast. You know, this is what you are.
In a meta sense,
Go.
I will say broadly is that I really appreciate being able to read this and comment on it because in the same way, it's that you are facing exactly the same things that I have and writers everywhere have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you are not
Honestly,
alone in this.
I think what I mostly did is I took that treatment and I was like, ChatGPT, write this in a screenplay format. And then it still had all my camera direction. I was like, it's not supposed to have camera direction. It's like, all right, here's this. And I was like,
Totally.
all right. And then I had to go through and rewrite it anyway.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
but
It's great for that. Tell
that
me what's
was
not good.
yeah, that's what I was like. I'm not exactly sure what I'm even supposed to have in the
Yeah.
screenplay.
But
Yeah.
this is more of a learning moment for me. Why is it a bad idea to have camera direction in a treatment or screenplay?
You know, when I learned in school that when you're the one that is going to be directing,
Only what
that
the camera sees, Lee, or no? Okay, you're no problem.
She's
while
typing.
you while you're banging that out, I learned that if you're there are multiple scripts. Okay. different
Oh, I
scripts for
see. So there's a camera script as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
One is the director's script. Ah, good to
Yeah.
know.
Okay. So this
Okay.
is more of a director script anyway. Then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I see it almost like I see the shots in my head and almost as like a comic book kind
Right.
of thing
Totally.
already, which is
That is
like I
very good
think
to know.
that this one includes some of the pictures. I don't. Yeah, like a lot of the pictures and stuff.
Absolutely.
I already see it that way, so it's like
Yeah.
trying to pare it down and like it would almost like we keep talking about or keep hearing that like, oh, the director's the one with the vision, and it's like I see all this already, so it's like it would almost for me make more sense to just go through and draw it all out basically
Totally,
and
yeah.
be like, here's what I'm seeing
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I've got way
s-
more notes than
like
we're
the
going to get to
storyboarding.
tonight. Because
Yeah,
we have,
yeah.
because we have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're out of time.
Sure.
But,
Yeah.
one of my notes is eventually we'll need to make a
Yeah.
storyboard, which is just do a comic book,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
stick figures and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that's a ways away at this point, I sort of think.
We'll have that done by next month.
For sure, for sure. Yeah,
well, some of the consumer stuff, you can have what you're thinking, and it's coming out, you know, you're talking, but you're not talking.
Right.
It's just like you're saying, oh, let me go up this hill here.
Right.
Let's see what's at the top of this hill.
Yeah.
Just whatever you're thinking at the time, but you're not talking in the scene, but it's coming out of your head.
Mhm.
you mean like a voiceover narration?
Yeah, just of him.
Yeah.
Him doing the line,
Yeah.
but not speaking.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So like a lot of this, it was just thinking about how to convey these emotions and convey.
I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt. One of the things that I was going to suggest you do is this is something that I've only done myself, and I can't source it from anywhere because I can't remember where I learned it from. But doing something called an emotion map,
Uh-huh.
wherein essentially you go through block by block of what your story is, and then in even like speech bubble or like a bubble chart of
Right.
like if you were to do a basic roadmap of your story, what are the intended motions you want to create or invoke in the
I like
audience
that.
from
Yeah.
what you're seeing. You can even color code it in terms of having different colors that can even blend together if you want to have mixed emotions or different things of brightness or darkness of like how intense or mild you want it to be, to kind of use it like that visual
Right.
representation and seeing, oh, okay, this is what I want them to feel, this is how strongly I want them to feel it, and this is what are the different undertones or overtones of it.
Right.
Because there's a lot of emotional complexity. And obviously
Yeah.
in this film, it's the biggest intent that I got is that it's making you feel a lot of things at once, but most predominantly, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty much. Yeah.
totally.
And that's like, it's certainly like knowing and understanding what Bizarro is as a genre, that
Yeah.
fits entirely within it.
Yeah,
But
I would definitely look into that a
of
lot.
using that emotion map too.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I will kind of add as an addendum to that, and this is only just, I guess this is more from my personal side of it, is from the array of emotions that filmmakers or storytellers then create, at least my own opinion is one that if you are going to implement disgust
Mhm.
as any kind of emotion in your film, it's a balancing act of
Right.
making sure that you can still convey the emotion, but it is still palatable enough
Yeah.
that it doesn't turn off the audience, or
Yeah.
it doesn't ruin their suspension of disbelief.
Right. Yeah.
So that means in some way, like you kind of already did it in the middle act of like setting a primer of like
Yeah.
the girl.
And that was a big part after Logan Mine's conversation. He's like, the ending feels like a big fuck you to the audience.
Super abrupt. Yeah.
And
so that's why is that if you want
Yeah.
to, disgust is
Yeah.
as an emotion is one of those things that you have to play super carefully around.
Yeah,
It's like
so that
firing
was
a bomb.
that was the whole a lot of the second scene was revamped
Yep.
Yeah,
to
so if you-
include like the sacred director to look ridiculous.
because
and
if you still want
Yeah.
disgust to be included, no
Yeah.
problem. It's just for audience impact and
Yeah.
effective dance of the narrative.
Yeah.
It's all about riding that tightrope of making
Yeah.
sure that like getting it to say what you want without just getting the entire audience to just be like, why the hell am I watching this?
Right.
Totally. Does Abe fart too?
No.
Girl does. Maybe.
No, so that was, I guess that was the thing, is like when he's talking to the sacred director didn't make all the necessary preparations to prevent that from happening.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So
okay.
that's kind of what that little bit of dialogue was about. Did Lee have something?
Oh, storyboard.
Oh, okay, sorry, I can't
Multiple
see that
scripts.
far.
Yeah, that would be a spec script, and then storyboard is next.
Okay.
Yeah. So great. We are right at 8 o'clock now. Personally, I'm happy to stay and talk about things, but
Yeah, me too.
We're at 8 o'clock. I know it's
I was
getting
gonna
late.
say I'll need to go home, unfortunately. As that genuinely, I would love to continue talking with you about it. Is that
Yeah.
I think it's like definitely it's something I personally I'm always of the mind is that there are no bad scripts.
Mm,
There are always just scripts in various states of rendition and iteration.
mhm.
So with this is that definitely there's a lot of really neat ideas here. And from what I saw of like by the second read through, I was starting to understand and seeing what you're kind of intending of like, oh, this like staircase of what the consumer is kind of climbing and
Yeah.
building up to of, absorbing the essence of people's lives, not to go full like Ghost Rider, but kind of like, seeing all their sins before them and building that up. And that there's a lot of interest there and kind of that interplay between like, oh, well, yeah, the bad parts about people are kind of disgusting, but
Yeah.
we process that. But then
Yeah.
ultimately at the end of kind of creating that rug pull of, oh, this is all seemingly a fantasy in the mind of some wage worker. Or is that not?
It's not like a fantasy. It's just like this is
see,
what
Lee.
he has. Like this is just his.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So-
To him, it is still just his 9 to 5.
Yeah, yeah. And
Gotcha.
so it's like
That's
it's
the
all
mood.
this build up with all this kind of grand
And it's
orchestrating
okay. I
of
see. It's that juxtaposition or that contrast between something feeling coming off so grandiose,
exactly
so like
the alignment of the planets and all this
So,
stuff. And
yes.
it's like, oh, it's so, and then you because
Lee, did you?
that's what it was
write
like when I
those
worked at
books?
Intel. Like when you describe what it is like working in the factory, in the fab, it's like you got robots flying everywhere and stuff sparkling, and it looks super cool.
and that's why we need you to work on this
Is it
spreadsheet.
kind of
Yeah,
fantasy
exactly.
or
And
what
it
is it?
sounds super amazing when you're describing what it is, but it's still your day to day.
Yeah.
Still what you're doing every day, and it becomes mundane and
Okay,
boring
so-
and annoying.
I was gonna say I'll have to go, but some two things that I'll
Yeah.
kind of recommend that are in then similar moods to that of in terms of absurdism and also related to like workplace experiences, something that might be interesting for you to watch. It's just a YouTube short by JG Quintel, who is the original creator of a cartoon
Regular
that goes
Show.
by the name of Regular Show.
Okay.
One of my childhood favorites. I loved it. It's an amazing cartoon. But before it ever got off the ground, he made a short, and it's posted to YouTube called 2 in the AM PM. AM PM being like the gas station chain.
Right.
Might be interesting. Might be worth. Yeah. Whoops. It's all good. Might be worth looking at. And then
I
the
don't have
other.
this in Tennessee. Maybe that's what it is.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey,
I
Owen.
don't have them in Oregon either. It's more a California thing.
Okay, there you go.
The second thing that I would mention is in terms of discussing themes of the feeling of getting bored with your job, even though what you're doing is ridiculous or insane.
Yeah.
There's an anime out there. I don't know if you guys are anime watchers at all, but there's anime out
Depends.
there that goes in there called One Punch Man.
Okay. I've
Yeah, I
definitely
like
heard of
One
it.
Punch.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's very popular now. It's kind of a mainstream anime, but
Yeah.
it's very funny. It's a really well done comedy. But
Right.
in particular, like the first season is a great introspective of like the main character and his own despondency at the fact that because he has become such a strong character or such a strong
Right.
person that he doesn't love the work that he does anymore,
Right.
and that is just boring.
Like Dr. Manhattan kind of.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Well, not even. It's played more for jokes,
Right,
but
right,
of course,
right.
because he's still at the
Yeah.
core. At the core, his core person is still just a mundane like
Yeah.
guy. He has an apartment, whatever, and all these ridiculous things and monsters like happen around
Right.
him and try to fight him. And
Yeah.
it's of course a lot of Japanese style absurdism, which
Right.
in my opinion is it's even its own genre.
Exponential levels of absurdity.
Yes, yes, it's insane. But that could also, I think, might be a good,
Yeah, I'll check this out definitely.
similar, but it's still a different perspective and a different flavor. But I think in kind of the same line of the underlying message you're going for.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay,
Thank you.
but with that, thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm gonna head out. I don't know if you're also joining there,
Yeah,
but
in a second.
Good deal.
All right,
Thanks for
Bowen.
coming,
Thanks,
Bowen.
buddy.
Yes, helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, do you like? Was this good feedback for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Definitely. Yeah. It's good stuff.
Good. Good. Good.
Thank you guys.
Thank
I
you.
really do think this is an incredible improvement. It's much more. There's more to it than what I saw before. So
Yeah.
I wanted to try and do like roses and thorns, and I'm afraid it just came out like thorns.
No, it's good. Yeah.
Good.
No, it's yeah.
I
I don't know.
personally, I prefer constructive criticism
Yeah,
as well. Too.
yeah.
That's just me. As long as you guys want to stay, I will stay and talk with you because I've got
Sure.
notes. Cool.
Yeah, I have to go to the
Ready to
bathroom.
go.
I'm with you, man. Thank you so much. Alrighty. Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and end it here, but thank you all for coming out and hanging out with us and talking about it. So we'll do this again this time next month. Thanks. Bye.
All right, we'll see you.